Hey everyone, it is Rebekah here with the Tailored Realty team here for our very first Tailored Tuesday. So welcome aboard. Make sure that you comment below if you have any questions about what to expect during the buy process or anything else, because today I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, not necessarily at you if you participate, but at you if you don't choose to participate. So here's where we are. We are live. Woo! Can you read that? I don't think so. Probably not. Sorry about that. But anyway, we are here and we have a ton of tailors in the room as well. We've got, oh, I don't know if we can see. Yay! All right, super exciting. All right. My name is Rebekah. My name is Rebekah Foster. I'm with the Tailored Realty team as well. And today I wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about what the buying process is if you're interested in purchasing a home. So if you're interested, we always do consultations one-on-one with yours truly or one of our tailors as well, all about the home buying process. Exciting stuff, right? All right. So inside inside our packet of information, we have our roadmap to success. So this is something that we definitely will be able to go over with you in person, but I wanted to make sure we did a high-level overview for everybody out there, Facebook and every other venue as well. Okay, so the very first thing when you are purchasing a home is to find representation. Representation is really one of your very first steps when you're considering purchasing a home. You're going to want to have a realtor that is knowledgeable about the area, that has success as well, and is able to support you. Twin Cities market, we're seeing that inventory is moving really, really quickly. Wouldn't you guys all agree?
Yeah.
Yes, it is a seller's market in the Twin Cities, which means that it is very important that you are able to go and see a house as soon as possible. So with agents, you want to have people that have the ability to help you, that know how to help you, and that are able to help you, meaning that they have the time, the energy, and the know-how to do so. So we've got a team. There are 9 of us actually on this team, so that means that if you're working with one of us and the person you're working with doesn't happen to be available, there will always be somebody on the team that is able to help you out. Next step in buying a home is to determine what your financing is. So your financing is an all-important piece of information because, first of all, you want to make sure that you are very comfortable with what the payment is. You don't want to, be looking at $1 million houses if you only are qualified to purchase a $300,000 house. So it's very important that you know what you qualify for and that you're comfortable with that payment. Beyond that, it's also important to understand what the type of financing is. So there's a couple of different types of financing that are most common in the Twin Cities area. So I'll try to write them down. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not. But first common type of financing. Can anybody tell me?
Conventional financing.
Conventional financing, yes. Conventional. So unfortunately, it's a mirror image, but you get the point. All right, another type of common financing.
FHA.
FHA, yes. FHA. Another type of common financing.
VA.
VA. Everybody's shouting it if you guys can't hear. So we have VA, and the last most common type of financing that we have in the Twin Cities is just straight cash. Now there are other financing opportunities that are available. Yes, what about VA? Yes, VA is another common type of financing, that's right. But there are other types of financing that are available. However, these are the most common in the Twin Cities market. So I really want to make sure that we focus on these types. So full disclaimer here, I am not a lender in any sort of way. I'm a realtor, so my job is to help buy, locate, and negotiate properties. But a lender is going to be able to help really be able to explain this a little bit better. However, I know enough to be dangerous here, so I'll give you a little bit of a high-level overview of what these different things are. So cash, that is exactly what it sounds like. It means that you're paying in cash. So literally you're taking money out of your wallet, taking money out of your bank account, and you're purchasing a property in cash. So that's what that means. So if you have cash, then lucky for you, but do be expected that you're going to have to provide proof of funds. So what that means is if we're putting in an offer for you on a property, we are going to have a bank account or something else that shows that you actually have the amount of money that you say it does. Unfortunately, it doesn't work with a handshake and a wink anymore. you do have to provide proof that you have those funds available to you. So that's not saying that somebody's going to like steal your information. We can always redact sensitive information, but do we expect it that you're going to have to provide some sort of proof where if you're purchasing a property for, say, $300,000, that you better have the bank roll behind you to support that. All right, so that's cash, pretty self-explanatory. Another common type of financing that we have is VA. So VA is reserved for veterans, so people that served in our armed forces for our country, and they also have to qualify for VA. So make sure that you qualify for VA. This would be definitely a question for a lender to make sure that you do qualify for a VA. But if you do qualify for a VA loan, so if you are a member of our armed services and you are VA eligible, this might be a really good option for you. So with VA properties, it's associated with, actually you don't have to put anything down. 0% down is the minimum amount of money that you have to put down. So VA is a very attractive option for a lot of veterans because you can get into a house with very limited funds. So that's VA. If you have other questions about VA, just make sure that you reach out. We'd be happy to connect you with a lender that can talk a little bit more robustly about what the VA process is. And I hear myself. Awesome. Okay, so that's VA. Then we have FHA. FHA is a federally secured loan. So FHA is associated more often than not with first-time home buyers, but it can be really anybody. The minimum amount of money that you need to put down on an FHA loan is 3.5%. So everybody say that with me, 3.5%, woo! 3.5%, that's what you need to put down on an FHA loan. Anyone have questions about that? Anyone on the Facebook world have questions about how much you have to put down with the different types of lending?
Rebekah, when clients ask us about first-time homebuyer programs,
yes.
What exactly do they hear about first-time homebuyer programs, and what is that?
Yes, so thank you, Mike. Thank you for chiming in there. So there are some first-time homebuyer programs that are available. There are some that are available directly from the lender, so make sure you ask your lender, hey, do you have any first-time homebuyer programs available? But more often than not, what people are talking about when they're asking about first-time homebuyer programs is down payment assistance. So if you've heard about down payment assistance, that's probably what you're talking about. Down payment assistance is something that the state of Minnesota actually regulates. They regulate what the interest rate is. They have the criteria for what your credit score needs to be. So credit score, interest rate, your debt to income ratio, all of that is regulated by the state of Minnesota. So if you're interested in down payment assistance, again, another question to make sure that you ask your lender. Say, hey, lender, is it possible that I would qualify for down payment assistance? So down payment assistance is exactly what it sounds like, where the state is providing a little bit of monetary funds to help with your down payment and possibly some closing costs. It's not free money. It always has to get paid back, but it is sometimes an option for people depending on your personal circumstance. So again, if you have questions about that, since we're not lenders, make sure that you do talk to a lender so that they can advise you on your personal situation. All right. The last type of most common financing that we have in the state of Minnesota is conventional financing. And conventional financing, the minimum amount of money down on conventional financing is 3%. So there you have it. You have a minimum of 3%, a minimum of 3.5% with FHA, 0% with a VA, and with cash, you're putting down 100% of the purchase price of the property. So there's always some different nuances with the different types of financing that you choose. So if you've got questions about that, make sure that you reach out. We can try to help direct you and put you in the right direction. Otherwise, you can reach out to your lender directly and they can answer those questions for you. So that's the financing. Why it's important that we understand the financing is not only because we want to make sure you're comfortable with your payment, but we also want to make sure that the type of home accepts that type of financing. So not all homes accept all types of financing. So it's really important that we know what type of financing that you have, because we don't want you to fall in love with a house and then all of a sudden realize that the type of financing that you have secured doesn't work for that house. So very important. All right, so we're along our little roadmap here. Want to make sure that I pause for any questions. So make sure that you chime right in, because I'll answer your question immediately if you write to me. So, all right. So in my little roadmap of success here, we talked about representation, why it's important to help somebody. The representation, they're really the gatekeeper. Think of it like a bicycle where you have a wheel and you have your pegs and your spokes. The real estate agent is going to be the one that helps direct all of the different activities. So even though our job is really to help you locate the property, negotiate the property. We also are guiding you along all the different steps of the way. Then we moved over to the financing. I think I maybe beat this with a dead horse, but it is very important that you get your financing secured. Your pre-approval lasts for 4 months. So get that pre-approval in so that you know that what you qualify for and what the type of financing is. The next step is define your criteria. So why are you looking for a house? That's pretty important, right? So is it that you are trying to find your forever house? Is it you're trying to avoid paying rent? Whatever the case may be, it's important to decide why are you looking to purchase a property? And then it's also important to determine what is important to you in your home. So do you need to have a certain number of bedrooms? Do you need to have a backyard? Do you need to have a fence? What is it that is really important to you? And these are the types of things when you come in and you talk with us, we have some pointed questions that we will ask you specifically so that we can figure out how can we help match you up with the right property. After you have defined your criteria and said, here's what's important and here's what's not, that's when we actually begin our home search. So the multiple listing server is what all real estate agents in the Twin Cities have access to. It's important that we talk about the multiple listing server because there's a lot of different avenues that people can go and they can look at properties. It's estimated that 97% of people begin their home search online. Anyone surprised by that? No, not surprised at all. In the age of the internet, hey, you're looking at me right now too, right? We're on the internet, and most people that are looking for houses are on the internet as well, looking at houses. So 97% of people begin their home search online. However, it is important to know what you are looking at online. Oh, hey, Carol Shirley, nice to see you. Hi, Sue Cardinal, nice to see you. So, sorry for calling you guys out there, but make sure that you do right here and let me know if you have any questions. But when you're beginning your home search, there's lots of different places that you can go and you can search online. What are some popular search engines that people go to? Zillow. Oh, let me start erasing my board here. Okay, so some people go to Zillow. What are some other search engines people go to? Anyone online?
Come on, Mom.
Realtor.com, okay. Realtor.com. Anyone else go anywhere else?
Redfin? Or wait, is that a thing?
Yeah.
I don't know, you tell me. All right, Redfin, perfect. Okay, Zillow, Redfin, Realtor.com, virtually any site that you can go to, those are all called marketing websites. So what that means is that they're incentivized to get you to go to their website and they want you to click on the different properties because ultimately they're trying to get your information. Why I say this is because it's very important that you know where the true source of the information is coming from. If you're looking at the multiple listing server, which by the way, only real estate agents have access to the multiple listing server, the multiple listing server is our one true source of information. So the MLS pushes information out to Zillow, it pushes information out to Realtor.com, and it pushes information out to Redfin, not the opposite way around. So this is like the one time in our life where we actually have one true source of information. The only way that it's possible to get more up-to-date information than what we see on the MLS is for us to actually contact the listing agent directly and say, hey, what's going on with the status of your property? But that's really the most up-to-date source of information, and it sends it out to all the other syndicated websites. Now, these other websites are considered marketing websites, so there's sometimes where they purposely do not update the status of the house. So I will say that I personally get a phone call probably every single day saying, hey, Rebekah, I'm interested in this property. I saw it on X website. And I'll have to go take a look, and virtually every single time I have to say, I'm sorry, it accepted an offer. And it's because they're looking at other websites. So it's really important that you don't waste your time. Look at the right sources. Go straight to the horse's mouth. Get on the multiple listing server so that you have the right information, so properties that are available and that actually meet your criteria. When you talk with one of the tailors over here, we're able to set you up with a multiple listing server so we can define your criteria, say what's really important to you, and set you up with a search so that it is the accurate information, that it's the most accurate information, because it's not a marketing website. It's literally just meant for information. So that's what the multiple listing server is. When you get connected with a real estate agent, we can grant you access to the multiple listing server. So it's the search that we set up for you, as well as you can search on your own as well through the multiple listing server. But that's important. It saves people tons and tons and tons of time if we're getting on the multiple listing server. Probably the best example that I have of that is I talked with a guy last January, who had been searching for a property for 5 years. 5 years, and I'm not even kidding with you. 5 years is how long he was searching for a property. We started talking about what his search was. It started from 500 properties that were matching his search criteria. We started narrowing it down. We got to about 150, still quite a few houses to search through. We said, okay, here's what's even more important. We were able to get it down to 50. Defined it even further, down to 30, and finally by the end of the day, there were 5 properties that actually matched what his search was. So he was looking on these other syndicated websites, Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, at those 500, and that's why it was taking him 5 years to find the property. By the time that he was done with me, we had 5 properties that actually did work for him. We went out that week, saw 3 of those 5 properties, he offered on one of those properties, and now he lives there. So, great success story. For 5 years, down to 1 day with me, able to find what he was looking for and got a great house for him. So that's what your search looks like. Once you've found that perfect property, then we start by negotiating. So the negotiation process is it's dependent on every single house. So in the Twin Cities, yes, it is a seller's market, but some properties are priced higher than what they should be. Some properties are priced right at where they should be, and some properties are priced below market value. So a property that is priced below market value, that tends to be a bidding war. So that's a property just like eBay where it goes to the highest bidder. So even if a property is listed, say at $300,000, maybe it sells for $350,000, $360,000. I don't know. It depends on really what the buyers anticipate that the market value truly is of that property. And I'm sure all of you have heard stories of that where properties are just going into bidding wars and going way above asking price. I'm sure you've heard that because it's not necessarily uncommon in a seller's market for a property to be priced super aggressively. So let me get my board out here. Eraser. Okay, so this is part of where we come in as well. So I hope that you guys can see this. But let's just say that this line here is market value. Yeah, okay. So this line here is market value. You have some properties that are priced below market value. You have some that are priced at market value. And you have some that are priced above market value. So when we're looking at houses, one of the things that we're doing is we're taking a look at what are the comparable properties selling for around the area. Just because a property is priced at $300,000 doesn't mean that it's worth $300,000. It might be worth $350,000 or it might be worth $250,000. I don't know. We have to figure out what the true comparable properties are. And by the way, tax valuation has nothing to do with actually what market value is. So when we're looking at properties, we're looking at comparable properties, meaning that we look at properties that have sold in a similar time frame. So I typically look within the last 6 months. We're looking in a similar location, so generally a quarter of a mile. We're looking at a similar year, a similar style, and a similar aesthetics inside. So a house that has that is completely dilapidated is not necessarily comparable to a property that has been fully updated. So that's what we're looking at. And so when we do our market analysis, we're saying, hey, I think that this property is actually worth X dollars. So when we go to a property and we have a property that's priced below market value, so this is my arrow down here. So if a property is priced below market value, that is a property that is gearing up for a bidding war. So those are the ones that are going to the highest bidder. If a property is priced below market value, it tends to sell for more than fair market value. So it's a little bit of this fear of missing out that people have, that when people start getting competitive, if you have 5 offers on a property, sometimes people just want to win and they start getting pretty aggressive with their offers. So properties priced initially below market value do tend to sell for more than fair market value. Then you have properties that are listed right at market value. Those tend to sell pretty quickly, right around the price that they are listed for. So that's what market value properties are. Then you have properties that are priced above market value. These properties are the ones that tend to sit for a longer period of time, and then they actually tend to sell for less than fair market value. I know that this seems like a little bit of a misnomer. You might think, hey, if a property is listed for $300,000 and it's really worth $250,000. Well, why wouldn't somebody just put in an offer for $250,000? Really, it has to do with if it's listed for $300,000 and it's really worth $250,000. If you have a good realtor, such as myself, hi. If you have a great realtor, they'll tell you, hey, this is what I think that the property is actually worth. I don't think that the property will appraise for this value. I don't think that it's really worth this. And so when you start having that, then the property tends to sit. The most activity that a property will have is the first 7 days that it's on the market. That's when it starts, it's fresh, and it's where it goes out to all the syndicated websites and everybody starts getting a buzz about the property. If it's overpriced, then everybody that sees it is gonna say, hey, it's overpriced, and then it might sit for a long period of time. And trust me, we get this question from sellers all the time. And what happens is the longer that it sits on the market, the less interested people become. The less interested people become, the less people are willing to pay for it. So it's simple supply and demand. So if a property is priced below market value, lots of people are interested, so it bids the price up. If a property is priced above market value, not as many people are interested, so it bids the price down. Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions about that, folks? Waiting. Yay, it makes sense. Woo woo. All right, so it makes sense. I love that. If it doesn't make sense, make sure that you reach out to us. Let us know. All right. Again, this is live, folks, so make sure that you comment below and I'll answer your question immediately if you have any questions. But going along this little roadmap, I talked a lot about fair market value, but where I was actually going with this is it's all about negotiation. So when we're negotiating on a property, part of it is just determining what is the fair market value of the property. Now, it's never a stagnant number. It's always going to be a range, right? Because pricing is very subjective. It's not like a finite dollar figure or anything like that. So if somebody was pricing a property, if one of the Taylors over here, so if Mike or Maria or Leah or Liz, or if any of us were pricing the property, we might have very finite differences between how we were pricing a property, which is why it's a very subjective figure, which is why when I'm pricing out a property, I give a range. I give a valuation range. So when we're negotiating, we're looking at not just price, but we're looking at terms. What are some things that we can do that don't cost our buyers any money, but are favorable to the seller? So we're looking at how can we bring both parties together, because we're really trying to match make the seller and the buyer's needs together so that we can get our buyers the property at the best price that we possibly can, and for terms that don't cost them any money, but that help the seller out and make it more favorable to the seller. So that's what we're doing when we're negotiating. So the next step along our little roadmap of success here is to perform our inspection. So again, I'm a realtor. I am nothing other than a real estate agent. I've got opinions about everything. Trust me, I have opinions. However, I'm not qualified to give opinions about anything other than real estate. So it's very important that when we do go under contract with a property that you get an inspection. So in the state of Minnesota, technically speaking, the inspector could be absolutely anybody. It could be my dog Ralphie if I wanted it to be my dog Ralphie. But I would really highly advise that you do have a qualified inspector take a look at your property. We have an inspection company that we typically recommend. That inspection company spends 4 hours at the property. So they're testing the dishwasher, they're testing the washing machine, they're testing the dryer. They're testing absolutely everything. These are things that we would never be able to do when we're just walking through the property, and trust me, you don't want me to do it anyway. So the inspector, I don't care if it's new construction or a 120-year-old house, they always find something. That something doesn't necessarily mean that the seller has to fix it. So in the inspection period, we have a couple of different options. Anybody, what's option 1 during our inspection period?
Negotiate repairs.
Negotiate repairs, that is number 1. What's another option?
You can back out.
So you could negotiate for repairs. You could negotiate for cash off of the property or towards your closing costs so that you can take on repairs. You can walk away entirely from the property, or you can take the property as is. So when we have our inspection, it's really going back to our negotiation points. The seller doesn't have to agree to anything that we ask for during inspection. It's really an ask, and it's a renegotiation point. So during our inspection process, the buyer can walk away from the seller. The seller cannot walk away from the buyer. Very important distinction. I get this question all the time. That being said, we need to be reasonable with what we're asking for. Every single house has issues, even if it's a new construction home. I have never gone to a house where the inspector just says, yeah, it's good. Never, ever, ever in my life have I had that, and I don't anticipate that I ever will, because people are building houses and people make mistakes sometimes, but that doesn't mean that it's the responsibility of the seller. It depends on really what the issue is and what the ask is. So welcome to home ownership. Homes have problems. So sometimes it's worthwhile to ask the seller, sometimes it's not. This is part of the thing that we as realtors, that we advise you on. We say, hey, this is a really big issue or this is not. So don't be too surprised when you have their inspection, because when you have your inspection, you'll hear an hour of, here's all the things that are wrong with the house. But it's informative. We want to make sure that you're walking into home ownership with your eyes wide open. Nobody wants to get into home ownership and find that they have $40,000 worth of repairs that they weren't expecting. That is no good. No good whatsoever. So we want to make sure that people are informed. That's our job in the process. We're informing people so that they can we're giving you all the information that you need so that you can make a wise and informed decision about purchasing a property. All right. Any questions on inspection? No? Bueller? I see you, Nicole Schumacher. Got a question? Huh? Okay. All right. Call out to Nicole. All right. So the next step in our little journey towards success in our roadmap towards home ownership is to finalize our financing. Right there. Finalize your financing. So finalize the financing means that this is where we're going to order an appraisal, where we're going to have the loan go through underwriting, and you're going to lock your interest rate. So again, I'm not a lender. However, the lender is going to have certain steps in their process to actually finalize the funding of your loan. So one of the first steps that they're going to do is they're going to order an appraisal. So an appraisal is somebody else taking a look at the market value of the home other than me. So like I said before, when we're looking at properties, you're always going to have if you're dealing with one of the tailors, you're going to have one of us telling you what we think the fair market value is of the home. That's what we do every single time, because it's important to understand, is it priced below or is it priced high? What's a good deal and what's not a good deal? But the bank also wants to make sure that you're getting a good deal too, because the bank does not want to say using that $300,000 example, let's say you get under contract for a property for $300,000. If the property is only worth $200,000, if you were to default on your mortgage, then the bank would be stuck with that. So the bank doesn't want to have that happen. So the bank is also going to verify the value of the home as well, and that's done through an appraisal. The appraisal, if you're having a loan, this is not something that you can necessarily avoid, so you have to have that appraisal. So the bank's going to order an appraiser to come out, take a look at the property, and give their opinion on what the market value is of the property. Now, we spend an extensive amount of time looking at our comparable properties, so we're always pretty close, but we just want to make sure that we do have a good appraisal for the property. If the appraisal goes awry, we have tricks up our sleeves as well to make sure that we're still able to secure the property. But the appraisal is going to get ordered, so the bank's going to make sure that that happens. After the appraisal goes through, then the loan is going to go through underwriting. So even though you're pre-approved, it doesn't necessarily mean that the loan can go through. So if you purchase a property and the very next day you decide to celebrate by buying a huge monster truck, guess what? You might have screwed up your debt to income ratio. Don't do that. So do not screw up your debt to income ratio. Do not make any sudden life decisions. So if you get under contract to purchase a property and the very next day you say, I don't want to work anymore. I'm going to quit my job. I hate my boss, whatever that may be, now you don't have a job anymore. So it's really important that you just keep even Stevens. Don't make any huge life decisions from the time that you purchase a property until you close. After you close, you do you. But from the time that you get under contract until you actually close on the deal, no major life decisions that affects your finances.
What happens if my financing does fall through?
If your financing does fall through, it's gonna. So the question was in the room, what happens, Rebekah, if my financing does fall through? Well, I guess the next thing is it depends on why your financing fell through. So if your financing fell through just because maybe your credit dropped or you had something else, then there might be some other creative solutions. Maybe it's more down payment. Maybe it is switching type of financing. Maybe it's going from conventional to FHA. It's one of those things where we have to really look at it situationally, and we have to hold hands with the lender to try to find a creative solution so that you don't lose the property. But unfortunately, the times where I have seen financing fall through is because people made decisions themselves, like quitting their job or making huge purchases like a truck the day before closing, which really impacts what your debt to income ratio is, so you can't do that. The bank can't fund those loans anymore. But generally speaking, generally speaking, there might be a way that we can work with the lender to try to find a creative solution if something does happen with your financing and your financing were to change. But no promises. You guys have to do your part too. Make sure that if you are changing some things, talk to your lender before you make those decisions, because you can't unquit a job like once you quit it. So make sure you talk to the lender, make sure that that will still work and won't screw up the purchase of your home. All right. Any questions on finalize the financing?
No.
No, all right, I like that. All right, so then the next step is to do the final walkthrough. So from the time that we do our finalized financing up until we do the final walkthrough, it's gonna feel to the buyer like, what's happening? It's been a couple of weeks here and I haven't seen anything happen. And that's really because this is the period of time where all of the background work is happening. This is where title is checking to make sure that the seller can actually legally transfer the title from them over to you. This is when they're making sure that there's no mechanics liens on the property. This is when the lender is going through final underwriting. It's a couple-week process where it feels like there's a little bit of a lull, and that's because everybody else is doing the behind-the-scenes work to make sure that the seller can actually transfer the property. So between finalized financing and the final walkthrough, it's typically a couple weeks there. And the next step in your process is to do the final walkthrough. This is when you walk through the property before you close with me or with one of the other tailors, and we look and make sure that the property is in the condition that you actually expect it to be in. So that means that if we had our inspection and say we negotiated for some sort of repair, this is where we would verify that that repair is done. If you had your inspection and you said, okay, you got a ton of just junk, you got a bunch of junk in the house, you just want to make sure that that's where the property has everything removed that needs to be removed, that you can take the condition that it is currently in. Final walkthrough is typically done immediately before closing. So either the night before or the morning of closing, because we do want to make sure that nothing can happen from our final nothing happens after our final walkthrough that would change the overall condition of the property. And there's somebody watching, not going to call you out right now, that purchased a property with us, and after and thank goodness that we did the final walkthrough when we did, because the night before the closing, there was a big storm and the siding completely got messed up. So we had to work with the seller on getting that repair negotiated before our buyer actually took ownership of the property. This is the exact reason why we do the final walkthrough as close to the closing as we can, because we don't want to close on the property and find out that there's a major issue that we didn't know about. Make sense? Yes. Yes. Makes sense. All right. Just give me a, I don't know, what is this thing called? Anyway, yes, makes sense. All right, whatever that may be. So after we perform our final walkthrough, this is when we go to our closing table. This is where you get writer's cramp, because you keep on writing your name over and over and over and over and over, transferring the title from the seller over to the buyer. So this is actually typically the least stressful part, just because it's just a couple of signatures. Then yours truly will give you the keys to your new property. So that's the process. The overall process from the time that you put an offer in on the house until you get the keys is somewhere between 30 and 60 days. So it's about a month or two process overall. What's really cool though is your first mortgage payment is not due until after you've lived in the property for a full 30 days. So what I mean by that is today's what? September 29th. So if I were to close on a property September 29th, my first mortgage payment isn't due on October 1st, it's due November 1st. If I were to purchase a property on October 2nd, my first mortgage payment isn't due November 1st, it is due December 1st. So really cool way for you to save a little bit of cash, especially if you're considering moving from like an apartment or somewhere else, so you don't have to worry about the double payment. Anyway, that is our roadmap to homeownership. Da, 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 da. So obviously this was a pretty high level overview of what to expect when you're purchasing. I don't know, I might have lost you. If somebody was calling me about the roadmap to homeownership, I'll give you a call back, I promise. So sorry about that, guys. But anyway, so obviously this was a pretty high level overview about what is that roadmap towards homeownership. However, it's really important that you do know what the overall process is. People can spend months and years researching what the process is, but just go straight to the source. We'll answer any question that you have. If you are interested in looking at what does this look like for me if I wanted to purchase a house, make sure you reach out at team@tailoredrealtyteam.com, and we'll set you up with one of our tailors for your own private one-on-one consultation. that's all I have for you today. Make sure that you tune in next Tuesday for another Tailored Tuesday at 10. So at 10. Did you see that? 10. Next Tuesday at 10, we will have another tailor presenting a different topic for you. So make sure that you tune in at that time. Love you too, Christine. Well, love it, but I love you. Yes. All right. It was nice to see you, everybody. So thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate all of you. See you next Tuesday.